You mentioned about moving to different clouds and you mentioned data centers, etc. I've heard some good news for you, especially and our friends in WA, who've always had this problem of logging into data centers and clouds that are on the, let's just say, on the eastern border of Australia. What's the news coming out of Microsoft?
Yes, I've been based in Perth. One of the challenges that I guess we've had from an Azure perspective is that where we have latent sensitive applications, the nearest data center from an Azure perspective has either sent traffic from Perth across to the other side of the country, whether that be Sydney, Melbourne, etc., as part of the Australian East and Southeast, etc. Regions, or outside of country, latency-wise, going to Singapore, for example, was also another option, depending on carrier and network provider and these things as well. So for certain workloads, that latency that we've talked about, that could be 50 milliseconds, 70, it could be higher depending on carriage. And that's assuming you're in Perth. If you're in a remote location outside of Perth itself, you're then adding further latency perhaps, whether it be to a remote operation, a regional town, whatever it might be.
A lot of mining companies in WA. Yeah.
100%. So, if you've got high latency to go from, the northwest to Perth already, and many organisations have, traditionally had infrastructure either up in those remote locations. Maybe some of it is also back in a data centre in Perth. Again, you're then adding further latency perhaps to then move a workload, whether that be virtual servers or some other service, across to Sydney, for example. So for many requirements, latency is a consideration. Okay, whether that be it could be a Citrix workload that we've been running. It could be it could be an organisation that's wanting to take a look at Windows 365. It could be that they're running AVD or some other workload, and having the nearest Azure region being so far away for some applications is a problem. Yep. So Microsoft have made their recent announcement of there being an extension of the deployment coming into Perth as well. So this isn't a complete separate new region. Okay, this is similar to what has also been done recently in the US with Los Angeles as well, with the US West there as well. And again, this is really designed for those organisations that have latency considerations where they want those workloads to be closer to where the user base is. So it doesn't have to be everything, but those certain workloads, again, it could be certain virtual machines, it could be a need for doing local graphical processing, remote desktop workloads, whatever it might be, we can run those when it's available. Obviously, it's been announced, but will be generally available in 2025 out of Perth, and that's going to be a great change for a lot of organisations, whether they be government, mining, whatever the sector is. Having those services available closer is going to really help those organisations ensure that users have a great experience. I think that's the key thing, is experience for the end user, but also ensuring that they can meet their business requirements.
So I've recently heard that Microsoft's made an announcement that they're going to give our friends in Perth, which is where you live, Alan, some love when it comes to their own sort of area that they can run stuff.
Yeah, 100%, Steve. So one of the challenges that we've had for a long time for many organisations running workloads with Microsoft in Azure is latency. We've obviously been on the other side of the country for some requirements. Not having that local deployment, the local zone, is been a challenge for many businesses, regardless of the industry they're in. So having an extension of the existing region, so an extended zone into Perth, is going to really help a lot of organisations moving forward.
Cool.
So from an end user point of view, what do they actually get? They get to use and have their own workloads running in the Western control plane that they still use.
Yeah, so the workloads, again, this is not a complete new region. Okay, it's an extension of what's already in place today. So certain control items are done at a regional level. Okay, but what we have is the ability to run those workloads, such as it could be a general purpose compute requirement, a storage requirement. Those types of services that you need that are latent sensitive are going to be able to be based and run out of a data center in Perth.
That's fantastic.
So we obviously, as an organisation, focus on EUC. Is Windows 365 and AVD going to be available in region?
So having a look at the list of services that are going to be available for sure. It could be that you want to do AVD, that will be there as well. As will, if you're using something else and you just need general purpose compute and you wanted to extend, for example, an existing Citrix environment into that deployment, you could do that as well.
Great, there you go. Finally, Perth's getting some love.
Yep. Yeah, look, this all started going back about 2 years ago where we did an event in the Citrix EBC with one of our big customers, one of the airlines. And, we brought half a dozen vendors together and actually put it through as a story to the actual customer and got all the vendors to come up into session and actually went through what we can actually achieve by going through systematically for that customer and how we could actually reduce the amount of footprint. We could actually reduce the downtime, reduce the complexity, and make the end user experience key across the whole segment. And that customer then signed up all 6 products within 6 months, and we put that whole solution in, and it was able to save them hundreds of thousands of dollars and the ability to be able to work easier, faster for their workers. From that, we basically thought, okay, here's an idea. Let's actually put a story together. And Steve was the one that actually designed the story, and it was all based on Star Wars. My alter ego was Obi-Wan Kenobi Stones. And what we did then was the story was put together about a theoretical customer and the life journey of what happened with those 6 vendors. Now, we actually ran that event across Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and then in Perth as well. And we got unbelievable success.
And Adelaide.
And Adelaide. Yes, we did Adelaide too. Can't forget Adelaide. So it was actually run across all 5 states around Australia. And what we were able to achieve by telling that story, we got such feedback from the end users that it's not just a vendor coming up and then blurting out, this is what their product does and how true their product is. It was all about how this customer was able to put it together as a story and how it was actually done as a journey. And that really gave them the mindset that I remember that 8 months ago that you were talking about that and how that actually solved that issue. And I've got customers ringing me up now. And yes, we joke about me with my lightsaber and all that sort of stuff, and working around, but they get to hear about how to do it real time, how all 6 products work together systematically, that it's not me just selling a widget, it's how we can actually put in a secure environment, have that end user experience and make it nice and easy. They get to see what's in it for them and what they can do for their business.
So Craig, you mentioned your lightsaber there. Can you tell us what happened when you tried to take a lightsaber through security at the airport?
Yeah, I was heading, I think it was Sydney at the time. We were running our event at the Opera House. Beautiful event, running it up at the Opera House. So I've rocked up, I've got my lightsaber and it's in a nice big long box, and wasn't going to put it into the luggage, so I was taking it on board and put it on the security system, and then security stopped me. No, we need to see this, we need to open it up, and it's all got locks and all that sort of stuff. So I opened it up and they wanted to see it, and they were pulling it out and playing with it, put it back in, off I go. So come back, I went to do the Brisbane event. So I've gone through the same, gone back into Melbourne Airport, stuck it back into the X-ray machine, and they wanted to actually, they've gone, no, we've got to have a look at this. And then I hear a shout out from one of the other machines, hey, don't worry, that's Mr. Jedi. That's a lightsaber, he's fine. So yeah, it was kind of a bit of a joke. Even Melbourne Airport knew who I was with the Jedi lightsaber, so it was good. But we've had lots of, we've been doing a lot of stuff on LinkedIn and with our marketing campaigns. And it's quite fun. I get a lot of comments from overseas, from my competitors and other vendors around the States and in Europe to say, hey, Mr. Jedi, how are you going? They all know about it. They see the stuff. We've got some really good photos that are on our LinkedIn site and on our website with me and Richard Parnell, who was Richard Parsicknell, I think it was.
Richard Parsicknell.
So there's a couple of good photos of us in our lightsaber outfits with our lightsabers outside the Opera House with the Sydney Harbour Bridge in the background. So they look really cool. Why should a customer come to one of our TIBA events? There's quite a few reasons. We actually bring multiple vendors into our story, and we actually sell it as a story. We're not one of those resellers that comes along with our vendors and the vendors just there and start blurting out what their product and how good it is. We're all about what your business is and what your business requirements are, and that's where we wrap that technology around to give you that total solution from an end user security, from an end user experience. And this is where we do it as a journey. We've gone through from our Jedi Knight scenario. We've actually got a fictitious customer, and we actually tell you about what their issues are and how we're actually to solve those issues using those variety of vendors. And actually, we put it in as that story and how those products will actually work at that time, and they work together. And that's the biggest problem we see out there. Vendors are out there selling how good their products are, but it's about their product and their product only. And this is what TIBA brings to the table when we actually work with, a customer works with us. We can actually look at what your issues are and then wrap that technology together, bring those variety of best practice vendors in and work out what you actually require and be able to merge all that into one, so you'll get one heterogeneous system that's got the best end user experience, the best security, and it's giving you the best product at the best price. That's what TIBA can do. So pick up the phone, give us a call on 03 9415 3400 or info@tiba.com.au. Talk to you soon.